Let us see that say what are the learning points that say we have over here, say in this chapter. The term startup stands for, say you start a new business with some innovative ideas, say with some innovative concept. That is what we understand is a startup. However, this chapter that say we are going to learn is basically the startup financing. So we always know that say obtaining of the finance is concerned in that basically there are two routes of the financing. One is the own financing, that is equity financing, and another is the debt financing. Own financing is always having say the more element of risk, and debt financing is having say the less element of the risk from investor point of view. From company point of view, say from the person who is doing business point of view, own financing is having say no risk and debt financing is having a huge risk. Startup financing is a chapter which is focusing on that say how you are going to finance a startup. Over here, say the institute has given us explanation about certain innovative methods of the financing. That is what say we are going to learn over here, say from examination point of view. Just I would like to refer to the questions say from the examination point of view which they have provided in its publication. Before we start with the material, explain the concept of the bootstrapping and describe the various methods of the bootstrapping used by the startup. So what is bootstrapping, and with the bootstrapping how you can have the financing for the startup, that you are required to explain. Bootstrapping is basically that say you are having say your own financing to be used for the purpose of financing the startup is called bootstrapping. Or otherwise, if at all you are already one business which is going on, with the revenue of that business, say you finance any other new like venture, that is considered to be the bootstrapping. Of course, we are going to learn all of them in detail. Explain the methods in which startup fund can bootstrap. In that they have provided something like called leasing, then they have provided the factoring of the accounts receivable, and so the vendor financing as the method of the bootstrapping. An individual attempts to found and build a company from personal finances or from the operating revenue of the new company. What is this method called for? Bootstrapping. Discuss the two methods. In that say we had to give the answer regarding say the like factoring of the accounts receivable, vendor financing, and leasing. So these three questions are going in the same direction. What is startup to avail the benefit of the government scheme? Now from that is in order to take the advantage of the government of India scheme of the Startup India initiative, what are the conditions which are required to be fulfilled? That is your organization should not be formed say before such number of years, your previous year turnover should not be exceeding this amount, or say it should not be as a part of the split off of an existing concern, something like that. So the conditions are there. That is what say we are required to say give answer over here. Explain the Startup India initiative asked in examination, also in RTP. Compare and contrast startup and entrepreneurship. Describe the priorities and the challenges which Startup India are facing. What are the some innovative ways to start up? This is, in my opinion, is an important question which we are going to understand. Some innovative ways. In this they have provided a broad like 9 methods of the financing so of the startup. Once see this is a question in which whatever the 9 methods that say we are going to discuss, something like called personal financing, then so the family and friends, then vendor financing, factoring, and so on. They have provided 9 different methods. Later on you will see crowdfunding, peer-to-peer funding, something like that. Now they have asked a few questions later on wherein they have specifically asked that say you have to explain crowdfunding, you have to explain peer-to-peer financing. So when those questions are asked, then in that case as a student it is very simple for you to answer because there is a specific question on the crowdfunding. But when the question is like this, explain some innovative ways, in that case the important point for you is you to remember all the 9 methods and you are required to write appropriate things in all the 9 methods. That is what I think is very important. Mr. R has completed his studies and wants to start his online business. For a successful online business, there are various expenditure costs with regard to advertisement and application development. To make the business successful, he wants to raise the funds. Explain some innovative sources of the funding for the startup. So these 2 questions are going in the same line. Then they have provided one entirely a different segment. Venture capital financing is a unique way of the financing the startup. Characteristics of the venture capital financing, advantages of the venture capital financing. Can a company with no commercial operation can raise the capital by IPO? Then angel investors. Explain briefly the sources of the funding for the startup. Then peer-to-peer lending and crowdfunding. These 2 things are included in this 9 methods. So it may happen that you are fortunate to have this kind of question, wherein you have to write only crowdfunding, you have to write only peer-to-peer. Non-banking financial sources are becoming popular to finance the startup. Venture capital funding passes through the different stages that you have to discuss. Explain pitch presentation, list the methods appropriate for pitch presentation. See what happens at as you know that we are covering the entire module, we are covering the entire all the content of the module. Starting from May 2018 till we can say that at this point, there was not a single question either in revisionary test paper or asked in examination for pitch presentation, and they have provided the same directly in examination. What I want to tell you is that from examination point of view, your covering of the entire module is very necessary. It is not only that you rely only on the RTP or suggested questions for the purpose of preparation of theory. For theory, you need to have 100% preparation. That is, the entire module should be clear to you, and in that head points, and further in that the relevant, that is the content that you are able to write.